Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and welcome to Prog Chattery 777. We are talking about Max Webster, and we've made it to their fifth and final studio album, Universal Juveniles, released in 1980. And it's fair to say that this is Max Webster's controversial album. It is definitely a little bit removed from the first four records that they did. It's very much the other album, if you like. It's got a different mojo to it than the first four records, but it's by no means a bad album. There's some terrific songs on here, and in fact, it's got some of my favorite Max Webster songs. Actually, there's one very notable one that Max is forever famous for. But there's something different with this album, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the band had just endured its perhaps most traumatic lineup change. Just before they recorded Universal Juveniles, Terry Watkinson, the keyboard player, left the band, and his absence is felt on this record, I think. So we have a lineup now of Kim Mitchell on guitar and vocals, with Pi Dubois writing the lyrics, of course. Gary McCracken is still playing the drums. Dave Miles is playing the bass, although I think he left right around the time this album was made, either in the middle of the sessions or after the sessions. And then the keyboard work is given to Dave Stone, who actually who played in Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, who Max Webster opened for a couple of times, interestingly. And Doug Riley plays some keyboards on here as well. But the keyboards on this album definitely take a backseat to the guitar. Without Terry Watkinson there, that magic sound that Max Webster had established, that balance between Kim Mitchell's guitar playing and Terry Watkinson's keyboards, it's obviously not there. I mean, there are keyboards on the album, but, they're supporting the guitar. So it's a much more guitar-oriented, much more guitar-dominated album. Obviously, the fact that Watkinson wasn't in the band meant that there's no Terry Watkinson compositions on here either, which is definitely a notable thing. All of the other Max Webster albums do have that Terry Watkinson influence in the songwriting, and obviously that's not present on here. But all that being said, the guitar heaviness, the lack of keyboard, or the lack of an affirmative, in-your-face kind of keyboard, I should say, and the difference in songwriting, it still is a really, really strong collection of songs. And given that it was a fairly stressful time in the band, I don't think it was a very happy time for the band. They still pull out something really, really special. I imagine it wasn't the happiest time for Kim Mitchell, because if you consider the lineup change, if you look back at the original Max Webster lineup on the first album, Kim Mitchell's really the only player that's left from that period, aside from Pi Dubois. But hey, like I said, it's got some classic tracks on it. The big question is is it a full-blown Max Webster album? It's a great album, but without Terry Watkinson there, does it still count? I think a lot of people consider this to be a bridge to Kim Mitchell's solo career, actually. And I can see that, not in all the tracks, but there's a few tracks, particularly on the second side, which really kind of, point to the direction that Kim Mitchell would take as a solo artist. That's all quite interesting. Why don't we dissect the tracks? Obviously, the album cover is a very notable, strange thing. Kim Mitchell in his awkward banana suit. It's very actually telling of the album, the guitar sound and the fact that it is, there's more of Kim on here than the balance between Kim and Terry. Anyway, let's get on with the tracks. So it opens with In the World of Giants, and I gotta say right off the bat, this is one of my favorite Max Webster songs. It is a very high energy number. It is probably the most intense album opener of their catalog, actually. And it sets the tone for the album really well. Those opening notes, that first, shreddy guitar line, and it just launches into this, high energy, up-tempo shuffle, and it's just phenomenal. It's a great track. I love that riff. Great riff, and it's very guitar-y, but the keyboards are underneath. I think that's Dave Stone playing, doubling up that guitar line. So it has a nice, rich, full sound to it, even though it is, guitar is the first thing you're hearing. This track does contain some of Kim Mitchell's very best playing. I mean, he really is a truly phenomenal guitar player, one of Canada's hidden gems as far as an instrumentalist is concerned. The guitar solo on In the World of Giants is just phenomenal. It starts out with those slow quarter note bends, and then he goes into that shreddy style. and it's it's shredding and it's fast playing, but I mean the notes he chooses and the way that it's still there's still an emotive quality to it. It's not just playing fast for the sake of playing fast, to my ears anyway. Really, really good stuff. There's some cool little honky-tonk piano towards the end. I think that's Doug Riley doing that, which is nice. It's the key. The keys are still a part of the sound, which is obviously essential, but it's not Terry Watkinson's touch, obviously. But yeah, In the World of Giants is a great song, one of my favorite pieces by Max. Moving on to track 2, we get Check. Great track, typical of the album, very, very guitar-y. This is all about the guitar riff. And it's it's a short, punchy little song, but it's great. A lot of the shows would be opened. They would open the shows with Check, and it's great. That little intro, we get kind of the sounds of like PA muddledness and check, check. Great way to open the show, and of course, the song itself is basically saying, welcome to the show. Better check your exits clear and feel your ears burn, and we'll hand out all the aspirin we can spare and all the rest of that stuff. Great. It's just a great concert opener. But I think it's good that they put In the World of Giants at the top of the album, because that's a better album opener. But yeah, Check's a good track. Very guitar-y, like I said. All about that riff. Moving on to track 3, April in Toledo. One of my favorites. This is a great track. I just love that guitar riff. It's more of a phrase than a riff. It's the one cycle of the riff kind of takes you on its own little journey. It's a great little riff, a great little sequence, and there's some great classic Pie Dubois lyrics. She's taken a break from my face. It's a lost love kind of a song, and references to local areas to me anyway. I'll run to Niagara. I've never run to Niagara. It's a bit far, for that, but it's not that far really. I can drive there in an hour. But yeah, April is a great track, and I love the arrangement too. There's a cool little section like the intro towards the end of the song. And I like how they sneak that into that long, phrase or riff or whatever. That's a really, really cool little bit of arranging, and that's really cool. Great guitar solo on April in Toledo as well. I think it's a backwards guitar solo. I'm not really too sure, but it's quite cool. What more can we say? Great track. Good keyboards underneath that guitar solo as well, and I like McCracken's drumming. He's got the double bass drum thing going, but he's accenting the upbeats. Very jazzy, but with double bass, which is cool. Anyway, moving on. Track 4, Juveniles, Don't Stop. Pretty good track. It's not one of the best on the album. Probably my least favorite of the first side. But by no means a bad track. Great little guitar line. Really like that. There's some good lines there. I like when it kind of goes in the up tempo, the faster tempo bit. Oh world, we want to rock, so blow it out your ear. There's almost it's obviously not a punk song, but it's Max Webster punk-like, I guess. I don't know. I shouldn't have said that. It's not punk at all. It's a good track. Moving on, we get the most notable track of the album. Track 5, closing side A, we have Battle Scar, which of course features the members of Rush. We have, playing with Max Webster, we have Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and Neil Peart, which is, phenomenal and obviously very, very, notable. In the catalog. It's probably one of Max Webster's best known songs, actually. A lot of Rush fans, I'm sure, discovered Max Webster through Battle Scar. It's oh yeah, that's the one song that Rush is on. And it's an epic track. It's definitely the epic of the album. I love the kind of slow, long, winding intro. We get the little bass solo by Geddy Lee there, and the song itself is very slow, brooding, big, heavy riff. Which is excellent, and I love the contrast between Kim Mitchell's voice and Geddy Lee's voice. Kim's got this big, low, booming, shouty voice, and Geddy Lee at the time still had that really high register, that rock and roll scream, that Banshee's wail that he did. So it's a great contrast in that regard, and there's just lots of great playing. It's very anthemic and it's big, and it's one of those special magic moments of awesomeness captured live in the studio. Terry Watkinson is a guest musician on this track, of course. Terry Watkinson does return for Battle Scars, so that's really good. And yeah, it's just a very very good track. Interestingly, prior to recording it, they played it just as any other song, and Kim would sing the second verse, and it would just be there was never any duet factor, I don't believe. And I guess Geddy Lee came up to him because, of course, they were opening for Rush on all their tours, and said, "Oh, if you ever record that, let us know, and if we can do something, we'll do it." So then, they came to recording it. Rush learned the song, and they recorded it right live off the floor. And yeah, it's a phenomenal track, and it has gone on to be one of Kim Mitchell's trademark tracks. He plays it lots in his solo career, but with Peter Fredette doing the Geddy Lee's part. Yeah, great track. And that closes off side A. We flip the record over to see 3 Kims in awkward banana suits. And we get side B, which opens with Chalkers. Now, this is a phenomenal track, actually. This is an underrated song by Max Webster. And I think it really stands out on the album because we actually get to hear a lot of keyboards. Dave Stone really shines on Chalkers, actually. And I like it because it's not the big, burgeoning heavy rock. It's this, understated, atmospheric, kind of a plunky. It's very atmospheric, and it just has a fantastic vibe to it. I might be incorrect. I just want to double check on my sleeve here. I do believe Dave Miles. Dave Miles did co-write Chalkers, which is interesting. It's funny because I've read places that say that Dave Miles is not present on Universal Juveniles as a bass player, but he left, I think, after it. Maybe he left during the sessions or after the sessions, but the fact that he co-wrote Chalkers tells me that he was definitely present in any case. But it's a great track. Obviously, we get the album title, We're Universal Juveniles, which is really, really cool. I love the keyboard solo. It's the one big keyboard solo we have on the album, like I said, by Dave Stone. And that makes it stand out on the album quite a bit. And yeah, it's just, what more can I say? I really, really like it. I like the line, very self-referential. We're underdogs going for the 80s. Long shot in the dead heat of time. I like those kind of lyrics. Really good. Moving on, we get to track 7, track 2 on side B, Drive and Desire. Now, this is one of the tracks that, to me, really indicates where Kim Mitchell would go later in his solo career. The riff is very much a Kim Mitchell solo thing. And this is not a bad thing, but it definitely, it feels closer in DNA to Kim Mitchell's solo than it does in Max Webster. So that's kind of interesting. It's a great track. There's great lines there. Standing in a line with angels, really good lines. But it's not as good as some of the other stuff on the album. It doesn't hold up to anything on the first side. Definitely not as good as Chalkers. It's an okay song. I'm definitely more of a Max Webster fan than a Kim Mitchell solo fan. But he did some good stuff in his solo career for sure. Moving on, track 8, track 3 on side B, we get Blue River Liquorshine. Now this is a song that's grown on me quite a bit over the years. I never used to like it so much when back in the day, but it is quite nice and it belongs on the album for sure. It is very much in the tradition of the folky kind of a song, like On the Road from High Class and Borrowed Shoes. But it's augmented with these really weird, sharp piano notes. Which is really, really cool, and it's a great contrast to the smoother acoustic styles, that folky style. But it's great. I love the chorus too. The chorus has a nice sort of it's a weird time signature that goes in there. But interestingly, even though it's got the odd time signature and Blue River Liquorshine definitely has more of a Max Webster vibe, I really hear the Kim Mitchell solo thing in that chorus. There's a melodic thing to it, Blue River Liquorshine starting to flow. That sounds more like Kim Mitchell than Max Webster for whatever reason. Which is interesting because I think I read somewhere quite recently, it might have been on maxwebsterlive.ca, that they played this song way back in 75. So in that case, it's actually a much older song that they just never got around to recording until they got to Universal Juveniles. But very interesting in that I've always had a Kim Mitchell solo vibe about that one. But yeah, it's a great song, definitely one that's grown on me. Moving on, we get to track 9, track 4 of side B. What do you do with the urge? Pretty good track. Interestingly, this is another one co-written by Gary McCracken, but he doesn't sing this one. This one is sung by Kim. And I really like that riff. It is a bizarre riff. Almost sounds like it's falling apart. Ding ding doodle ding 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 doodle ding. Really awkward, kind of almost drunken riff. But it's quite cool. Not a very long song, and apart from the riff, it's okay. I've always really enjoyed it. What really wins me over with this track is the bridge. I love the bridge on What Do You Do With the Urge. I love when it goes into that acoustic part and he's kind of playing around with the harmonics a little bit. Really cool sort of atmospheric little moment there. And then as it builds up, you go into a solo. And I love how the bass, Dave Miles' bass, starts doing that descending riff, which is quite cool. It's a great little moment on the album. The bridge is better than the song as a whole, I think, in my opinion. Moving on to the final track of the album, we get "Cry Out Your Life," another song that I've appreciated much more, later on than I did before. It's a tremendous song actually. It's obviously not as big as like Battle Scar. I often wondered, why isn't Battle Scar at the end of the album? That's got the climactic finale, the big grand finale. But I can see why they didn't want to put Battle Scar at the end of the album, because it brings Rush into the fold or whatever. They'd rather close with a fully Max Webster song. But "Cry Your Life" is a really good track. It's not an epic in the sense of Beyond the Moon or Context of the Moon or anything like that. But it is a really interesting track. I like the interplay between the guitar and the piano. Kim's playing a pretty basic riff, with a few chordal variations mixed in there, and it's all about how the bass and piano kind of augment and bounce off of that riff. It's almost like a musical kaleidoscope, not to the same extent as people like Frank Zappa or the extreme end of creativity, but it does have that kind of polyrhythmic feel to it, which I really like, and great lyrics as well. Very well sung, great bit of singing from Kim Mitchell there. Kind of goes into a weird, shuffly thing towards the end, and the very end we get the guitar solo, where that classic thing where the band fades out and the guitar keeps playing, the band fades back in. We get to the end, and that wraps up the album. Like I said, it's not one of my favorite tracks by Max Webster, but in context of the album, I've always really enjoyed "Cry Out Your Life," or I've learned to, anyways. And with that is the final track on the final full-length studio album by Max Webster. The story would end about a year after this was released. Interestingly, after this was released, Dave Miles, the bass player, would leave. He was replaced by a guy called I don't want to mispronounce his name. I'll write his name in the comments. How's that? Mike Gingrich, I think. He replaced Dave Miles on the bass. Then they got another guitar player, interestingly, who was never on record. And so they had a five-piece Max Webster. They had a couple of different keyboardists, and then, funnily enough, Terry Watkinson rejoined the band, but kind of more as a sideman. He didn't have the same role that he did before, and they never played any of his songs when he rejoined the band. But I get the idea. It was just kind of a messy year with a revolving musicians, and finally Kim just kind of had enough of it, and that was the end of the band, which is most unfortunate, because I hold Max Webster in very, very high regard. They may not be as well known as some of the other bands that are out there, but I think Max Webster is easily at the same level of any other band that I've talked about on this channel. So it's Genesis and ELP and Jethro Tull, and there's lots, and there's going to be many more I'm going to be talking about as well. But I hold Max Webster in equally high regard as all those bands, and I think they should be better known. So if you should buy that box set. You really should buy it. It's called The Party, and you get the entire recorded output of Max Webster. You get the live album, Live Magnetic Air, plus a bootleg, plus Kim Mitchell's first 5-song solo EP. So that comes highly recommended if you are new to the band. Well, just get it all, because it's all really, really good. And I don't think I have too much more to say, really. I hope you enjoyed my chats on Max Webster. I may do Live Magnetic Air sometime in the future, not right away. I've kind of got a stockpile of albums that I'm going to do eventually. So if there's anyone else, that has requested some of these, don't worry. I will be getting out to Bursting Out by Jethro Tull, 90125 by Yes, and most likely Live Magnetic Air by Max Webster. But yes, anyway, on that note, thank you very much for tolerating my near incoherent ramblings. If you did enjoy, then don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all the rest of it. There's going to be some more Rush videos coming out, obviously. There's lots of Rush albums. And I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next, but I'm going to do something. So stay tuned here on this channel. You will see me in the future. Thanks again. Bye-bye.